My family has always been antisocial, always have and always will be. From my aunts and uncles to my cousins, we were no exception. My childhood house reflected this. It was a white, two-story house with a stone chimney that towered over the entire property. The house was situated on top of a hill surrounded by trees that could block out the sun, and it stretched for miles with only a dirt path to cut through the woods, far from any local government. We grew our own food, built our own well. Our mom was a doctor, so we didn't need much in the medical side of things. We had solar panels installed and a whole library for my little brother and I, so education wasn't a problem. We had complete self-sufficiency, but we still needed new things from time to time. Dad was responsible for that as the designated traveler of the family, the only one to go into town for any type of business, whether it be money or tools. He was also the most reclusive of all of us, for the lack of a better term. Privacy was always top priority for him. He was the one that made us live in this place, and to top it all off, his favorite hobby is to build "Get off my property" signs all over the forest so that non-existent people will get the idea. He was still my father, the same person that played catch with me and brought ice cream home from time to time. So his eccentricities were forgiven by younger me. He was also the first person to encounter the peeping Tom. He was just at the border of the property setting up his signs when he spotted a figure peeking at him behind a tall oak tree. It was barely a yard away from my dad, but it was enough for a spook. I can still remember the way Dad sprinted at the house, bursting in, grabbing his rifle, and bursting out. A few gunshots later, and he came back wide-eyed and sweating. He described the thing during supper. Most of its body was hidden by the tree, but its face was enough to scare anyone out of any place, he said. The figure was entirely hairless except for its long and thick eyelashes that almost covered its eyes, which were each fist-sized and never blinking. The skin was paper white, its face shape long and pointy. The fingers that gripped wood were longer than the tree's branches, and the worst of all was also the smallest thing. The face wasn't at eye level. It was placed at the top part of the oak tree, almost touching the leaves. When he rubbed his eyes, he saw the thing smile. It was like how chimpanzees smiled when they were about to maim someone. The teeth weren't sharp and prickly, but they resembled a long line of baby teeth that mostly showed the gums, dark red and fleshy. It looked as if it didn't breathe, he said. Dad stayed up after that, clutching his rifle with both hands every night, circling the house. We found him sitting on the porch with his eyes barely open and his grip barely gripping. Mom followed him this time, and they both came back shaken up after a short while. The monster was already showing its full self with its trademark smile and fingers. Dad dumped half of his ammo at the thing. He would shot more if Mom hadn't stopped him. It was like throwing pebbles at clay. There was no blood or any gore of any kind, but you could see the holes that the bullets came out of. That was enough for the thing to walk backwards into the woods, never breaking eye contact with my folks and never showing any sign of damage. It simply walked away. After all that, we weren't allowed to go outside. Mom was in charge of the supplies, Dad was in charge of the defenses, and my brother and I were in charge of not dying, which were the same words my mother used. Dad was now the only one that ever went outside, and the more he went out, the more stories he brought with him. He was in his truck when he spotted the thing standing just outside the house, peering into the second-floor window. When the creature noticed him, it just extended its legs in impossible long strides into the forest. Again, never breaking eye contact. My dad bought long planks of wood and fashioned a rickety fence that was as tall as the chimney. It surrounded the house, leaving no entry points to speak of. Mom was okay with it, being as manic as my father. They didn't seem to sleep anymore. In the mornings, Dad would tap his feet endlessly while also looking around. In the evenings, he would guard the house, circling it with a rifle in hand. This would go on for an entire week until Monday rolled around. It was around midnight when we heard the shrieks of my mother coming from the next room. She was looking at the top of the fence, still as nervous as ever, when she spotted the face staring at her. Dad was already shooting at the thing, gunshots echoing into the night. Mother instructed us to help her with barricading the house, and we did. Every piece of furniture propped up the door in stacks. The windows were already boarded up. Every entry point was sealed, and now it was time to wait for my father to finish the creature off. Gunshots pierced our ears. One, then two, then three. More shots fired until all fell silent. My brother peeked through the small slits of window that weren't boarded up, and what he saw sent him into a hysteric fit of cries and whimpers. It grabbed him by the neck, he said, repeating it, starting from a quiet shock to a panic. Mom was too preoccupied with a sound that came from somewhere. It grew louder and louder, that rumble of noise. We soon found out where it came from. We forgot to barricade the chimney. With a single hand, the monster grabbed at my mother's throat right in front of us. It raised the body with a single motion, and soon her neck grew longer. Her feet were still touching the ground. Then it pulled her fast enough to make her a blur. Her neck was still growing. I chased after her, trying to grab at her feet, but I was too short and slow to do so. When there was nothing left but the black darkness of the chimney and the small hicks and sobs of my brother, a face emerged. It gave a smile and a wink before going outside. I stood there wide-eyed, goosebumps all over, and an overwhelming urge to throw up preoccupied me. My brother's wailing was the only sound I heard throughout the night. When morning came, I was clutching the fire poker for some sort of assurance, with my little brother leaning on my shoulder, still drooling from sleep. We both decided to check outside, and with a little bit of strength, we managed to displace the barricade to the front door. Shovels were in the broom closet, so we took our time digging through the ground to the other side. When we finally got out, we saw our parents lying on the ground side by side, eyes closed and necks stretched to the length of a car. Dad was the only one with a phone, so we took it, dialed 911, and they took us away. Me and my brother were shipped off to our estranged aunt's house that was more of a cat shelter than a home. We stayed there for years up until we graduated high school. My brother got into a whole lot of things after high school. Most were illegal and substance-related. I visit him from time to time in the small rehab center. My parents were alive, believe it or not, living in a facility of some sorts. They only ever talked to me through text messages and calls. I guess they just don't have the heart to show themselves. I came out right for the most part. I have a house in the suburbs, 2 kids of my own, a loving, eccentric wife, and a boring accountant job that pays well. It was all sunshine and rainbows up until the peeping Tom showed up once again. I saw him a couple of weeks ago, inches away from the kitchen window while I was doing the supper dishes, still wearing that baby teeth smile. Now it's been looking at us ever since, never once flinching or moving. It was just a peeping Tom.